Hey guys, so very good morning. Today we are discussing 1 Corinthians chapter's introduction. Corinth in the time of Paul. The city of Corinth, perched like a one-eyed Titan asteroid, the narrow isthmus connecting the Greek mainland with the Peloponnese, was one of the dominant commercial centers of the Mediterranean world as early as the 18th century BC. No city in Greece was more favorably situated for land and sea trade. With a high strong citadel as its back, it lay between the Saronic Gulf and the Ionian Sea. It ports at Lachoion and Cenchreae. A dialogues or stone road for the overland transport of ships linked the two seas. Crowning the Acorinth was the temple of Aphrodite, served and according to Strabo by more than 1,000 pagan priestess prostitutes. By the time of the gospel reached Corinth in the spring of AD 52, the city had a proud history of leadership in the Achaean League and a spirit of revived Hellenism under Roman domination after 44 BC, following the destructions of the city Mummius in 146 BC. Paul's lengthy stay in Corinth brought him directly in contact with the major monuments of the Agora, many of which still survive: the Pontanian House of the Spring Pierine, the Temple of Apollo, the Macellum or Meat Market, and the Theatre. The Bema and the unimpressive synagogue all played a part in the experience of the apostle. An inscription from the theatre names the city officials Erastus, probably the friend of the Paul mentioned. When you look at Romans chapter 16 verse 23, we can understand. Author and date. Paul is acknowledged as the author both by the letter itself and by the early church fathers. His authorship was attested by Clement of Rome as early as AD 96, and today practically all New Testament interpreters concur. The letter was written at AD 55 toward the close of Paul's 3-year residency in Ephesus. It is clear from his reference to staying at Ephesus until Pentecost that he intended to remain there somewhat less than a year when he wrote 1 Corinthians. Now we are going to know about the city of Corinth. Corinth was a thriving city. It was at the time of the sea city of Greece, both commercial and politically. When you look at a map, we can understand completely. The first point, it's commerce. Located just off the Corinthian isthmus, it was a crossroads for travelers and traders. It had two harbors. First one is Cenchreae, 6 miles to the east on the Saronic Gulf, and second one is Lachoion, a mile and a half to the north on the Corinthian Gulf. Goods were transported across the isthmus on the dialogues, a stone road by which smaller ships could be hauled fully loaded across the isthmus, and by which cargoes of large ships could be transported by wagons from one side to the other. Trade followed through the city from Italy and Spain to the west and from Asia Minor, Phoenicia and Egypt to the east. Second one is its culture. Although Corinth was not a university town like Athens, it was characterized nevertheless by typical Greek culture. Its people were interested in Greek philosophy and placed a high premium on wisdom. Third one is its religion. Corinth contained at least 12 temples. Whether they were all in use during Paul's time is not known for certain. One of the most infamous was the temple dedicated to Aphrodite, the goddess of love, whose worshippers practiced religious prostitution. About a fourth of a mile north of the theatre stood the temple of Acleophas, the god of healing, and in the middle of the city, the 6th century BC, temple of Apollo was located. In addition, the Jews had established a synagogue. The inscribed lintel of it has been found and placed in the museum at Old Corinth. The fourth point is its immorality. Like any large commercial city, Corinth was a center for open and unbridled immorality. The worship of Aphrodite fostered prostitution in the name of religion. At one time, 1,000 sacred priestess prostitutes served her temple. So widely known did the immorality of Corinth become that the Greek verb to Corinthianize came to mean to practice sexual immorality. In a setting like this, it is no wonder that the Corinthian church was plagued with numerous problems, occasions and purpose. Paul had received information from several sources concerning the conditions existing in the church at Corinth. Some members of the households of Chloe and had informed him of the functions that had developed in the Corinth. When you look at chapter 1 verse 11, we can understand. There were three individuals, Stephanas, Fortunatus and Antiochus, who had come to Paul in Ephesus to make some contributions to his ministry. Where we can, when we look at chapter 16 verse 17, we can understand. But whether these were the ones from Cholia's household, we do not know. Some of those who had come had brought distributing information concerning moral irregularities in the church. Immorality had plagued the Corinthian assembly almost from the beginning. From chapter 5, it is apparent that Paul had written previously concerning moral laxness. He had urged believers not to associate with the sexually immoral people. Because of misunderstanding, he now finds it necessary to clarify his instruction and to urge immediate and drastic action. Other Corinthian visitors had brought a letter from the church that requested counsel on several subjects. And it is clear that although the church was gifted, it was immature and unspiritual. Paul's purposes for writing were, first one, to instruct and restore the church in its area of weakness, correcting erroneous practice such as divisions, immorality, litigation in pagan courts, and abuse of the Lord's Supper. The second point is to correct false teaching concerning the resurrection, and third one is to answer questions addressed to Paul in the letter that had been brought to him. So, theme. The letter revolves around the theme of problems in Christian conduct in the church. It thus has to do with the progressive sanctification, the continuing development of a holy character. Obviously, Paul was personally concerned with the Corinthians' problems, revealing a true pastor's, shepherd's heart. Relevance. This letter continues to be timely for the church today, both to instruct and to inspire. Christians are still powerfully influenced by their cultural environment, and most of the questions and problems that confronted the church at Corinth are still very much with us. Problems like immaturity, instability, divisions, jealousy and envy, lawsuits, marital difficulties, sexual immorality and misuse of spiritual gifts. Yet in spite of this concentration on problems, Paul's letter contains some of the most familiar and beloved chapters in the entire Bible. Now we are discussing outline. Total we have 16 chapters in 1 Corinthians chapter Now the first chapter 1 to verse 1 to 9 we can see introduction, and chapter 1 to 4 divisions in the church. Chapter 1 to chapter 4 divisions in the church. Under that we will discuss the fact of the division, the causes of the division, and a wrong conceptions of the Christian message, a wrong conceptions of Christian ministry and ministers, a wrong conceptions of the Christian, and the exhortation of end the divisions. Chapter 5 and 6 we can discuss moral and ethical disorders in the life of the church, and under that we can discuss laxity in the church discipline, lawsuits before non-Christian judges, and sexual immorality. Chapter 7 instructs on marriage. Under that we will discuss general principles, the problem of the married, the problems of the unmarried. Chapter 8 to 11 we can discuss instruction on questionable practices. Under that we can discuss the principles involved, the principles illustrated, a warning from the history of the Israel, the principles applied. From chapter 11 to 14 we can discuss instructions on public worship. Under that, property in worship, the Lord's Supper and spiritual gifts, and the test of the gifts, the unity of the gifts, and the diversity of the gifts, the necessary of the exercising the gifts in love, the superiority of the prophecy over tongues, and the rules and governing public worship. And chapter 15 we can discuss instruction on the resurrection. Under that we can discuss the certainty of the resurrection, the consideration of certain objections, and the concluding appeal. Last chapter, conclusion, the practical and personal matters. So in coming days we will discuss these 16 chapters chapter by chapter in our Bible study. God bless you. Thank you.